What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to basketball. And more importantly, welcome back to our season preview series, the series where we're doing an in-depth look at all 30 NBA teams before the start of the season. We're going to be talking about everything from their roster additions, a full-on roster and asset breakdown, draft picks, salary cap status, rotation, everything that you guys need so that you can be prepared for the start of the regular season. So hey, make sure you guys like, subscribe, and comment. I've responded to every single comment on my YouTube channel up to this point, and I intend to keep on doing so. Let's get into it. So we're back here on the season preview spreadsheet. For those of you that don't know, I make these spreadsheets for a lot of my videos to kind of help articulate and show the storytelling behind it. But if you guys want access to the spreadsheet, it's pretty simple. Just leave me a comment saying I would like access to the spreadsheet. There's a bunch of different things in here: standing predictions, rotation, roster breakdown, additions and subtractions, things like that. If you want access to it, just leave me a comment saying that you would like access to it. I'll then drop you a link to the Discord. Once you hop on the Discord, just shoot me a DM there and I'll get it to you there. Nice and simple. It's good for my algorithm then, and you guys get a cool spreadsheet out of it. Everybody wins, and we're transparent and honest during the process, so that's awesome. Today, we're breaking down the Golden State Warriors. It's currently August 4th. At the time that you guys are seeing this, I am on my honeymoon, and I can't be working while I'm on my honeymoon. Otherwise, I will not have a reason to be on a honeymoon anymore. So just know that this is being pre-recorded. If anything changes between now and then, let's say some sort of big trade happens or it's at some point, I'll make sure to do a little video to kind of help supplement it and build upon it. It won't be that long, but we'll build and make adjustments from there. But regardless, we've got the Warriors today. This is an interesting one, to say the least. I know you guys are already looking at the screen and you've got some questions, right? Last year, Warriors were 46-36, which is a fine record at the end of the day, but for the Warriors standard, right, it's not as good as what we're used to, right? When you have Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, that three that you expect to be so great, you expect it to be better. And now this team was dealing with injuries, probably an abusive salary cap situation, meaning it just wasn't good. You're in this weird in between of trying to develop some young talent, but still trying to play this core basketball style that you had with your three. It just wasn't great. So where do I have them right now? I actually have them in a rebuilding setting. Now, what does that mean? There's a couple different things you can categorize teams as: selling, rebuilding, growing, or contending. Does this team want to win a championship? Yes, but are any of us kidding ourselves right now into thinking this team can currently win a championship? No, they still have Steph Curry, though. So we're not entering a stage that a lot of teams would be, where we're kind of selling and we're tearing things down. We're trying to keep Curry happy. It's just we need to retool somehow within the 2 years that's left on his contract, and who knows how much longer he's going to be one of the best players in basketball, right? So we've got to do some rebuilding, some retooling to figure out how to get back into contention. And that's why the first goal is figure out how we can contend again. How can we bring a star player? And right now there's conversations about they really want Lauri Markkanen, but they're like, we're not willing to give up Pods. To which I'm like, okay, I'm sure you like this dude a lot, but like, we're not going to go get anywhere if we don't trade some of these young guys, man. And just be happy that like you got Pods with the pick that you did, and like you got more value out of like that draft pick than you would have. So let's sell high on it. Well, everyone loves Pods right now. Who knows if Pods will be good this year? I'd like to think that he will be, but that's just my thought. Other goals: how can we turn Kuminga into true value one way or another? Because is Kuminga getting us a star player value right now necessarily? No. Is he an interesting player? Yes. Like, I know a lot of Warriors fans are attached to this guy like he's a future all-star, but we haven't seen something out of him yet to really suggest that. And I'll be the first one to say part of it's because he's playing in a system that doesn't work for him. He doesn't get to have the ball a ton, and he's not a smart enough player to where he can be a primary ball handler yet. He doesn't have any floor spacing capabilities. He's got a lot of other interesting talents, but it's hard. Like, it's not a perfect situation for him, but he's kind of got to be like the second leading scorer on this team, and he doesn't even really fit in the starting lineup. So it's a weird situation. So how can we turn him into something of true value? Either he needs to fit on this team, or we've got to make him good enough to where we can trade him and get something good for him. Got to figure out something with it. And then we got to find a real center for this team, because we've got a couple center options. It's not great. This team hasn't really had a true center since Andrew Bogut / JaVale McGee. So, and you know, those guys were as good as they were, but it'd be good if we could get a true center on this roster somehow, just because I think Steph Curry playing with like a run, jump, and dunk center is beneficial. But alrighty, let's start talking about what happened this offseason as far as like, who did they add, who did they lose, right? This was This was a hard offseason to swallow if you were a Warriors fan. Let's start off with the draft. Well, I'll explain. There's a couple different things. We have drafted players, departed players, meaning players that were on the team last year that are no longer on the team this year. Players brought in is the opposite. People not on the team the year before that are brought in. If you re-sign someone, it doesn't count. It doesn't matter. It's the same roster. So, started off with the draft. Didn't have anything outside of a late second-round pick. You took Quinton Post, who I actually like Quinton Post. He was on my big board at the very least. I'm like, yeah, this guy could turn into something. He's a true 7-footer. Is he going to be able to contribute this year? I don't know. He hasn't signed his contract yet at the time of recording. I would presume he's going to come into a two-way spot. There is still one roster spot open, and we'll take a look at that. But the realisticness of him being able to contribute right away is probably just not there. So I'm going to presume he'll be a two-way player. So didn't do much draft-wise. I think they did the most with what they had, but nonetheless, it's what it is. This is where it gets hard to swallow. Klay Thompson is gone. The Splash Bro, the 3-and-D guy that got you 4 championships and was the second best player on your team next to Steph Curry, he's gone now, y'all. We got to say it out loud. He's gone. I know he had the rough end to his time there, if you will. But look, at the end of the day, the dude was still a really good basketball player. It's just he's not all-star, championship level Klay anymore. And injuries have gotten to him and everything. But at the very least, I think we can all say that the team was better off with him on the team and hoping that he could catch fire again than what we have now. But this is a situation we find ourselves in. They got rid of Chris Paul, basically just told him, hey, time to go, right? You can go sign somewhere else. It wasn't worth keeping him for all that money. The fit of him wasn't necessarily there. It just didn't really work. The whole Jordan Poole situation just didn't go well, right? Meaning the trade for Chris Paul and everything. Didn't go well. Dario Saric is gone. Dario Saric is someone I kind of liked. I liked the ability of having a different look as a stretch big on this team. I think he had some good moments at the beginning of the season for them last year, so kind of sad that he's gone. And then a couple other guys, Garuba and Quinones, no longer on the team, kind of just end of the bench guys. Not the biggest deal at the end of the day. Who did we bring in? We brought in Kyle Anderson, so basically Draymond Green light. Doesn't do much for you scoring the basketball wise. He's pretty limited to his floaters. We all know we don't want him shooting 3-pointers. A good passer, pretty solid defender, just a smart basketball player. So you basically always have a Draymond Green type on the court now, which that's good. It's not the worst thing to have that because that's what works in this system. So that's cool. It does suck that this team doesn't have very much dynamicness in terms of its forwards. So that kind of sucks. You brought in Buddy Hield. You have a new Splash Brother. Buddy Hield can get you points, which is good because we don't exactly know where that's going to come from on this team right now. Presumably he's going to play a good amount of minutes. He's going to probably fit in pretty well in this system. So that's exciting. He's going to get a lot of open threes. They'll probably try to play him with Steph a good amount. I can't imagine he's going to start necessarily. Maybe he will, but that seems like a defensive nightmare between him and Steph. Steph's a really good off-ball player. He can only do so much on-ball, right? The Warriors are smart enough to put him in what's called a bump-off system, which means look, he's a smart guy and he's a smart defender, but just physics wins at the end of the day, right? And so I'd have to imagine that they'll try to go with them together for offensive punches sometimes, but I don't know. They brought in DeAnthony Melton, who's been a really good NBA player at points, but he's been kind of hurt for the last year and a half. So if he's healthy, that's interesting. And then they went and made a little trade with OKC for Lindy Waters, who at points has shown that he can be a 3-point shooter. And when I say that, I mean very limited minutes. And he again comes in at the 2 guard as an undersized 2. And as you can see, and as you're starting to count out loud with me, you've got a couple of those right now. And that's a bit of a problem. So when you look at what you lost versus what you brought in, it's different. It doesn't necessarily fix any problems, and I think it leaves holes. So not the best offseason, but let's talk about it from this sense. Those of you that have been on the channel for a while recognize this sheet from the ideal offseason videos. Those are obviously some of the best videos that I have on my channel. A lot of fun. We'll definitely be doing those next year, but this is a really good way for us to look at a salary cap, a depth chart, draft picks, a current roster status and everything. But what better place to start than the salary cap situation itself? By the way, if you guys want a more in-depth look as to how each of these levels work, because look, The salary cap is more complicated than ever. The rules are more important than ever, so you should try to understand them. I explained them better in some of my earlier videos of this, like the Celtics and the Grizzlies one, so maybe go watch those if you're curious. But here's what you guys need to know. Basically, these aprons have been put in because the NBA doesn't want their players being traded so much anymore. They want fans to have loyalty to teams again because that's better for business. And personally, I think it's more fun. Maybe you guys think it's more fun the other way. That's obviously your opinion, but I personally like that this is a rule now. I think it's made the game much more interesting and much more of a puzzle. In essence, as soon as you get into these aprons, the league starts squeezing you a bunch. They're like, it really limits how you can use your roster, and it very much incentivizes you to just keep your players and figure it out from there, right? If you get into this first apron, it really limits like what you can do. And when you get into this second apron, pretty much just consider that that's your team for the season, because it is going to be really hard for you to make moves otherwise, unless you're trying to tear a team down. They're making it really hard to build anything further than that. But the Warriors actually find themselves not in either of the aprons, so they have complete mobility to go out there and make trades. Now, they are past the luxury tax amount, which means that they can't go like sign a player that wasn't their own for anything more than a minimum contract. You can always re-sign your own players for like more money. You can give them as much money as you want within like bird right standards, but for simple explanation, you can always bring your own players back. Once you're over the luxury tax, though, if you want to bring new players in, it can only be a minimum contract, which can still be valuable. You can still get a good player for that, but with the Warriors not being in complete contention anymore, you know, the idea of playing with Steph and Draymond at this point isn't as appealing anymore. So I don't know what kind of minimum contract player you're getting anymore. But anyway, not the worst, like pretty fine salary cap situation all said and done. Like, we can make moves. It's just, what kind of assets are we working with? So let's start to talk about that. We've got first round draft picks going forward, which is good. We're just missing the 2030 pick, but we've got this 2025 pick that could be valuable to people. Like, any of these first round picks could be valuable because people don't know what the future of the Warriors is. We've got 2 more years of Steph Curry, so after this, the 2027 year, that could be a huge selling point to people. They could be like, the Warriors could be complete just ass by then. We don't know. So, like, any of these picks could be valuable. You still have some second round picks to use as well. It's just, what other assets are you attaching these to, and what kind of players are you trying to get? Because remember, it's harder to make trades nowadays, right? It just is. Luckily, they can bring in somebody that makes a little bit more money and be just fine. I know we've talked about the Lowry Markkanen one. I think that makes a ton of sense. I think he'd be a great addition to this team. They just have to be willing to fork over the assets to actually make it happen. So that's where it gets a little bit complicated, but they can go make some moves. Let's talk about the actual roster. So obviously 2 more years of Steph Curry. Anything's on the board after that. You'd like to think that Steph Curry's going to stay around, but maybe he doesn't. We don't know. So you're trying to maximize this time while you still have one of the best players in basketball. And you owe that to Steph Curry, right? Everything he's done for this franchise, you owe it to him to do that. You got Andrew Wiggins on the team, who he was a key part in a championship team just a couple of years ago. We do know that Andrew Wiggins, and maybe if you don't know, I'm not going to go into too many details, but Andrew Wiggins has been dealing with some crazy stuff off the court. We hope that he's doing better and everything. It's not necessarily his fault or anything. Like, I'm not going to go into any further detail, but we hope he's doing okay. Look, these guys are dudes at the end of the day. Like, stuff gets to you and it makes it harder for you to do your job. So we hope that he can come back into form and be a really good player again, because he is like a good third option on a team. His rebounding, his athleticism, his shot making. Hell, they need the shot making right now. I mean, you just look at the picture of like this team and everything. Like, you expect him to be the next scorer on there. So let's hope we can find a way to get Andrew Wiggins back to around 18 to 20 points again. It's going to be necessary. You got Draymond Green locked up for a while. He's not the player that he used to be, but still impactful in this offense because the offense was basically made for him. D'Anthony Melton, 1-year deal, $12 million. If he gets back to being an effective basketball player, that's great. The problem is we've got a lot of other people at this position as kind of like the undersized, like 2 guard, not quite a point guard spot. So he can be a 3-and-D guy for you, but we have a little bit of parity because Gary Payton, hopefully 3-and-D defensive guy, kind of undersized. He's more of a wing, honestly, at this point, so he's really undersized, and that's kind of a problem. Again, not much of a scorer. Buddy Hield, obviously got the 4-year deal. Hopefully another Splash Brother. Makes a ton of sense for him to come in. It's a very team-friendly deal. That's awesome. It's also a very tradable contract. I would think they'd want to keep him because they don't have a lot of shot creators. And if you've got guys like Kyle Anderson and Draymond Green on the team, you're going to need guys that have a lot of gravity to work with him because that's what works best. So Buddy Hield on the team makes a ton of sense. How much is he going to play? We don't know. Kyle Anderson, like we said, poor man's Draymond Green in some capacity with possibly a worse jump shot. So, get what you get. At least like the offense can kind of keep flowing no matter what. So there's some plus side to that. You have Kevon Looney, who he's still going to be a really good rebounder. He's a pretty good defender. He's not a rim protector. This team really is missing a rim protector, but he gets the system. Is he going to play a ton of minutes? Probably not. It's probably going to be pretty split down the middle between him and TJD, Trace Jackson Davis, who was a great find for them last year. Again, not an elite rim protector, but at least somebody with some size that has a little bit more athleticism to him. So that's something. And then we get down to these two. Jonathan Kuminga, very interesting basketball player. Got you like 16 a game or something last year. Young player coming into the last year of his deals along with Moses Moody. They were both like lottery picks that year. I know you guys want to believe that Kuminga's like the next coming and you don't want to get rid of him for that reason, but like, look, he clearly doesn't work in this system. He doesn't. So either the system's got to change in some capacity, because look, like, how are you going to develop your future all-star? Because like, you can't play him next to Draymond. Like, are we sitting Draymond? Because that hurts Curry, believe it or not. It just does, because Draymond's ability to play off of him and his comfortability, or his level of comfort within the system, is so important. He's your best player. You have to maximize him, which means Draymond Green has to be on the court with him in some capacity, at least some of the time, right? So what? Then you're trying to play Draymond at the 5 again, and look, like, he could do it when he was younger. You shouldn't do that much nowadays. So now you're playing him and Kuminga. That's a whole spacing issue. You're trying to play like a Wiggins with him or something, who's not always the most reliable shooter in the world. It's just, there's problems, right? It just doesn't fit. Like, something doesn't fit here. Something's got to give. I'd rather try to turn him into like some sort of star player or something like that. But even then, like, let's not pretend that he's the most valuable thing in the world. He still hasn't shown a ton yet. Like, he's shown some cool things. It's not a ton. Moses Moody, kind of same thing, but less, if you will. Where we've seen some spurts of things, the 3 and Dinas, he's said a couple times he wants to be traded because, like, clearly his development doesn't make sense here, and they're right, and the Warriors should realize that and try to move him. They've probably waited a bit too long now, and now you've got this situation where you got 1 year left, a team has to take a rental type thing on him, and for now he hasn't been moved, so who knows? You got Pods on the team, who was a great discovery for them last year. He came in. I've got him slotted in at the 2 right now, just because they talk about how valuable he is. I'd find it hard to believe he's not starting. Then 3D, smart, not the most athletic, but like just plays good basketball, fits in the system well. Great discovery. He's got a team option at the end of this year. Presumably they'll take it. He's clearly untouchable to them for whatever reason, or they're just trying to hype him up. I can't tell. I don't think he's that good to the point you wouldn't trade him for a star, but that's just me. Lindy Waters, again, one of these kind of like 2 guards that he's going to space the floor a little bit. I'm not expecting anything crazy out of him. Trace Jackson Davis on a super team-friendly deal. He could be the starting center for all we know. I'm just going with Looney now for continuity's sake, but Trace Jackson Davis, again, he can get up above the rim a little bit more. He's a little bit more energetic. I'd like to think teams are probably going to key on him a little more. I still don't see a huge potential thing out of him, but he's there. And then you have Guy Santos on the team, who his whole contract isn't guaranteed, so he can be another wing for you, but I think it's better off just kind of like cutting him and trying to find like a veteran wing that can help you out a little bit more, because look, we've got 1 open roster spot. We could have 2 with him. I'd give Quentin Post, the guy they drafted, like a 2-way spot or something like that. If he earns his way onto the team, great, but I don't know. Like, let's take a look at the depth chart, right? We've got like 1 point guard on the team and then Pods. That's not great. Like, DeAnthony Melton's kind of played it at points, but I think we all know that he's better kind of without the basketball. I know Draymond handles the ball a little bit. Kuminga handles it a little bit. Anderson handles it a little bit. We got to get some more point guards on this team, man. We got to get some guys that can handle the rock a little bit. We got to make some sort of deal to get a little more depth on this team, because, like, here's the thing. Curry's better without the basketball. Like, he just is. He can do a lot of great things with it, but his real strength comes without it, and creating the space and being within the system and stuff. So we need another guard on this team in some capacity. So we've got a weakness there. We've got a lot of the same type of player going on here, which is kind of this undersized 2 that, like, there's some solid shooting up front, and then we got some question marks after that. So it's like, okay, we need to like move on from some of these guys and figure out how we can add something to the wing. Because if you look at the wing, you got Wiggins. Cool. I like Wiggins. If you need to trade him for a star, cool, whatever you got to do. I'm going to probably keep saying that. Then you get into undersized, not even like necessarily 3-and-D complete guys. So we've got an issue there. You get into the power forward, you got some interesting stuff going on, right? You got Draymond, Kuminga, Kyle Anderson. Pretty good. No spacing, though. That's a bit of a problem. We got to find spacing somewhere on this team. Like, something's got to give. And then we've got 2 below average centers. Like, it's not a great roster, really, all said and done. You've got a lot of questions. It's not the worst first 5 in the world, and part of it's because you just have Steph and Curry. I mean, but if you didn't have Steph Curry on this team, this could be the worst team in basketball, in all honesty. Like, it very well could be. But within a good system and some smart basketball players and the upside of like a Wiggins and Kuminga and stuff, you've got something there. There's a pulse at the very least. But what kind of moves can we make to where we can try to get things going? Now, I'm going to like kind of mess around with a couple trades now. We'll go over to Fanspo and we'll kind of hypothesize where we can go with this. I'm not going to like actually change anything on here because this is a season preview, but I want to get us thinking in the right direction nonetheless. But who can we move? I'd like to keep like a Melton because he's a little bit more dynamic. I'm cool with trading Gary Payton. I'm cool with trading Kevon Looney, Kuminga, Moody, like pods if we need to, right? I'd say cut Guy Santos, but let's even just take a look at free agency. Who else can we even add here? Who's even still available? So Gordon Hayward retired. Evan Fournier, not a bad option. Not a ton of 3-and-D there. Markelle Fultz is honestly probably not a bad pickup. Like, we've been hearing that there's like no market for him whatsoever. He could slide in at a backup point guard. He'd bring size at a position, which would actually be useful. We know he's a good defender. He's a good athlete. He can get out and run in transition. He's a good passer. Getting him for a minimum is probably good. The floor spacing obviously sucks, and you've got a lot of kind of like iffy shooting already on the team. So, but for talent, it's not the worst idea in the world. Talen Horton-Tucker is another interesting one. Again, he can play kind of the 1, 2, or 3. He's got enough ball handling experience to where you'd feel okay with him there. He does turn the ball over a decent amount, so that's a bit of a question. Looking through the rest of here, Doug McDermott would at least bring some size and some shooting and some experience, so we'll take anything that we can get in that department. Right now, Rocco, I think, is a bit past his day. Isaac Okoro, still a restricted free agent. I mean, throw something at him. I mean, I guess at the very least and see what happens, right? I mean, it's not the worst idea in the world. Reggie Bullock's kind of past his day at this point. Pat Bev is somewhere else now. He's overseas. I believe someone got Yurtseven. Did they not? I believe somebody got him. Like a Dennis Smith is an interesting option because at least he can get out and run again. Lonnie Walker would be a great pickup. Again, he kind of falls into that kind of undersized 2 thing, though. We'd rather get like a wing or a point guard or something. So, I mean, the options are obviously dwindling. It's the end of the offseason and everything, but I mean, there's got to be someone else that they can bring in some capacity to kind of help them out. Like, hell, maybe TJ Warren's good enough. Javonte Green would be interesting. He doesn't provide the shooting necessarily, even though the percentage I think would say he does. It's just really small sample size, but I don't know. I think we gotta like hypothesize how we can turn Moses Moody in like Kuminga. Like, let's not even try to do like a star trade, because here's the thing, right? We could say like Lauri Markkanen, Brandon Ingram, somebody, right? Like in some capacity, like they're clearly not willing to like move pods or anything like that. So what can we do with like Kuminga, Moody, Gary Payton for the time being, just to kind of balance out the roster more, if nothing else? I think the obvious thing to do is call these teams that are selling actively and be like, okay, we'll toss you some of these picks, just give us some of your better players so we can try to stay in relative competition until a star player comes around. So we also have to think about it this way, right? If we were to do something like that, they'd probably want to go and try and get a star player first because they're not in the apron and they can just be more flexible right now. But let's try to explore some like moves where the salaries are pretty even, and that way we can still feel okay. Like, okay, they could make a move for a star player maybe first and then go somewhere else afterwards. Let's explore that. Okay, here's a thought that I'm having. By the way, shout out Fanspo. Fanspo is the best whenever it actually works. So is there any way that we can get a legitimate center on this team? This team has too many centers. How do we get like a DeAndre Ayton, or maybe not even DeAndre Ayton? Like, let's say Rob Will is healthy. Like, is there a world where Robert Williams could join this team? Because that'd be like a legit center. He'd be undersized, but I don't think Rob Will is 6'9", but that's just me. We could do a really easy move where it's literally just like Okay, Gary Payton, you're going over there. Rob Wills going over here, something like that. And then how much off are we? We're about $3-ish million. So where can we go from there? We're not including pods. So what, you throw in like a Lindy Waters or something like that? Maybe Moses Moody? You might not even have to do a pick if you throw Moses Moody in, because they need him positionally as well. Maybe you just throw in like a second or something like that, and like you could maybe do something kind of like this. Then Moses Moody gets out of here. Gary Payton, you don't necessarily need him right now. You bring in Rob Will at center. That's at least something to kind of get you going. At least you got kind of the true like defensive center that you want. Obviously, health is an issue, but it's something at the very least. So maybe there's something there, right? I'm not going to obviously update this here because this is more so about the current season, but something to talk about nonetheless. But let's go to rotations. Alrighty, so kind of an odd looking one, right? And I kind of talked about that a bit already. In order to win, we've got to play old ass Steph Curry. 33 minutes still. That's kind of what I'm thinking. By the way, these are like average minutes. This would be like a goal for me. This is not what I think they'll maybe actually do. This is kind of what I would do, and this is my vision of it. So let me know where you think I'm wrong, obviously. I think you got Pods up here around 28-ish minutes. Look, if they believe in him that much, you got to play him, right? I mean, if you're not trading him for Lauri Markkanen, he must be good, so we're playing him. We got to get some out of Andrew Wiggins this year. We got to assume that he's going to be the second leading scorer. We have to have him be the second leading scorer. You could say Kuminga, but I think it needs to be Wiggins. I just think he fits in the system a little better, so we'll go with him. Draymond can only play so much nowadays, a little bit older. He is limited in some capacity, and we do have Kyle Anderson on the team, so they can kind of play off each other. Looney, not playing a ton just because he's a little bit older. I think Trace Jackson Davis presumably is probably going to be a little bit better than him. That's why he's getting a few more minutes here, but for continuity's sake, continuity plays a big part in offenses and making sure they get going in the right direction to start games, so that's why I'd start him. Kuminga, look, he's just going to have to play a bunch, right? Like, if we believe in him that much and we think he's going to be a star player, he's got to play starter level minutes. He's probably going to be the third leading scorer in this scenario, so that's where we put him. You got Gary Payton and Buddy Hield here. You could maybe make a case that these two guys switch, but it's about the same amount of minutes. Buddy Hield's going to be asked to be a good spark plug for them off the bench. So they love Gary Payton's energy. He plays off of Steph well, plays good defense, gets above the rim for easy points. So we like him in that sense. And then Kyle Anderson, again, just being a second Draymond Green for us out there. You got Melton still that you could go to. Moses Moody doesn't crack the rotation, which, again, trade the guy, help him out, help yourself out, go get something different. You got to make a move somewhere. Lindy Waters again, and then Santos, who doesn't necessarily need to be on the roster, but he is for the time being. That's kind of how I'm viewing this for the time being. It's not perfect by any means, and you're asking new guys to do more things for you, but that's what happens, right? Other guys leave, other guys got to step up. But let's go talk about the standings and the predictions. So up to this point, we've got the Celtics and the Knicks on the board, the Grizzlies and the Lakers. Where do we have the Warriors? Drum roll, please. Ooh, where do we have the Warriors? I have to imagine they're going to be down there. Yeah. 8, 9, 10, 11. Got them as the 12 seed. Got them not even really in the play-in. And, like, do you blame me? I mean, look, trades happen. Things make adjustments. I make a new video then and say, like, hey, this is where the Warriors are at now, right? Like, maybe things have gotten better. That's awesome. They've used some of this to turn into something more prevalent for the time being. They go and get a free agent or something like that. I mean, we already looked. There's nobody that's going to make that big of a difference, but this is where I got them for right now, y'all. I can't envision them being any higher than the 12 seed. I just can't. And that's where I'm going to put them for the time being. I think they've got the capabilities to put together some good things, and we could kind of get this team going in the right direction. At the end of the day, you do have Steph Curry still, and you've got some interesting talent on the roster. It's just, I don't know, man. I don't know. I wish they could have kept Clay. I really wish they would have just paid Clay. But, you know, is what it is. He was ready for something different. So I totally get it. But hey, you guys let me know what you think down below. I think there's only going to be one more like pre-recorded video before I get back from my honeymoon and I start doing them a little bit more so like the day before you guys see them. But make sure you show this video some love. Leave me in the comments saying you want the spreadsheet if you want it. I'm happy to give it out to you guys. I gave out so many ideal offseason spreadsheets. I'd love to do it again. But your boy's going to go eat some dinner now. I think I'm going to make an omelet. Let me know what you guys ate for dinner tonight. I just love all the different comments. But hey, appreciate you guys always for watching, and we'll talk to you later. Thanks so much. Bye.